Stripes. Today we're going to talk inflammatory markers. Yeah, inflammatory markers. Because we've got physical inflammatory markers, and then we've got ones associated with the sun. So let's talk about physical inflammatory markers first. I discovered one this year that I haven't been messing with before. It's called HRV stress score. You're only going to get a detailed stress score from a Garmin device, but I highly recommend you do. There's no better indication of overtraining than your HRV stress score. It is so good. You would not believe it. I mean, it tells you, it basically, your heart rate has inertia. So here's what I mean. When you are overtrained, you will find yourself unable to reach maximum heart rate. Let's say your maximum heart rate is 187. If you go out and you go do your training ride, and your training ride has max out segments where you're supposed to achieve maximum heart rate, and when you try to do that, you get to 100% effort, you can't possibly go any harder. You have the afterburners turned on, and you only get to 167 or 170 for your heart rate as opposed to 187. That's an indication that you are overtrained. So, and the reason for that is because your heart rate has inertia. All right. What I mean by that is your HRV stress score uses both your resting heart rate and your heart rate variability. So what that means is when you're overtrained, your heart rate doesn't want to get as low and it doesn't want to get as high. It wants to be in a tighter range, and that is in order to recover. Your heart rate, you're not fully rested, so you don't get to your full resting heart rate. And anyway, that's just a little bit about inflammatory markers. If you have a Garmin device and a heart rate chest strap, you can measure your HRV stress score. So it's might be a good idea to measure that, especially if you want to sort of achieve maximum training results. Because if you overtrain, you're not going to be able to get to the same levels that you would get to if you were appropriately trained. So yeah, it's much easier to test your HRV stress score. It takes 3 minutes to do that. It's a lot easier to test that in the morning than it is to test it by going out and trying to max out. Because you don't want to try to max out if you're overtrained. You want to chill out if you're overtrained. And what you want to do is, if you figure out halfway through your ride that you're overtrained, scale back your intervals. Like, do less of them. Do them at a lower intensity. Switch to zone 2 entirely. Call audibles, because if you just smash through your training every time and mash through and bash through your training, you know what I mean? You're gonna end up going backwards. You're gonna effectively detrain yourself instead of helping yourself out. So that's the point. Now this is going to be a very short live stream because I am currently, I don't know if I'm overtrained, but my inflammatory markers are off the freaking charts. So I'm not liking it. And so there's going to be a very short stream as a result of that because I got to rest. So yeah, a great day to talk about how large sunspots do not equate to large solar flares. And even large solar flares do not necessarily equate to big time solar storms. All right. So, don't get the two confused, folks. Know the difference between a photon and a proton. We can have massive flares and no coronal mass ejections. We can have massive flares and coronal mass ejections that are headed nowhere near Earth. And then we can have no solar flare and massive coronal mass ejections headed toward Earth. So, you know, they're not the same thing. They're separate phenomena, and people get them conflated all the time. People conflate them all the time. So please don't do that. A solar flare, excuse me, a solar flare is photons, and a coronal mass ejection is protons. So think of it like a fan, okay? A coronal mass ejection is like a fan. It's blowing actual gas. That is not the same thing as X-rays. X-rays, think of those like a flashlight, right? An X-ray is nothing like some gas. The solar wind is primarily composed of hydrogen ions. There's also some helium, and there's some other, basically everything else in the periodic table is sort of in there, more or less. Yeah, but I digress. So today's a great example of large sunspots do not equate to large flares, and we can actually forecast flares. The reason that on some flare monitoring websites and so forth, you can see like a percentage that it'll show. The reason for that is because the magnetic shear tells us the likelihood of a large flare. When you have complex magnetic fields of opposite polarities, especially when they're oriented north and south of each other, that's when you tend to get big time stuff happening. Keep in mind, sunspots, they do migrate toward the solar equator as they rotate around from east to west. And wow, I feel pretty trashed. So it'll be interesting to look at my stats this morning, but I'm slightly hobbled. So I might look normal, I might sound normal, but I'm not. That's one of the skills of bike racers, folks, is resilience and consistency. So you may notice sometimes that we seem fine and we're not. Hey, Barb, thanks for leaving a comment. So we'll briefly take a look at the sunspots here, because it's actual news now, because there are so many sunspots, which is always exciting. Gotta love that. And we're up to, what are we up to? 185 sunspots? No, 196. 196 sunspots. I could have sworn I just said a few days ago that we'd, see 200 and possibly even 300 sunspots yet this cycle. Is it a double peak kicking off? We can only hope. We can only hope. So yeah, hopefully it's a double peak. Let's see if we have any Earth-directed CMEs. Nope, we've got some off to the east. Oh, there are some CMEs. We don't see any earthly directed ones, at least not according to the Huxt forecast. So it looks like the coast is clear for major space weather events. We'll take a look at the sunspots directly here. I'll look at these in high res and tell you the likelihood of flares. But yeah, pushing 200 sunspots, that's always nice. I think they are magnetically simple sunspots. Oh no, we've got some deltas. All right, so we do have an X-ray flare. We do have an X-flare watch right now. These spots down in the southeast, they are pretty bulky. They are bulky and they're magnetically complex. So that's what you want to see if you like solar storms. And on the channel, we certainly do. So there is the full disk view. There are those spots. Let me turn my guerrilla filming technique. So there they are, and that is not bad. I'm scrolled too far down. Hold on a minute. Let me get all of those on screen. There we go. That's better. So yeah, we do have some possibility of X-class solar flares, but these are not the best sunspots in the world for producing large flares, especially up in here. These are some pretty active looking zones, but that's probably it. I mean, they're not super crazy looking, but we do have some deltas there, so that's good. As they rotate closer and closer to the Earth, so that's a good thing too. That's what you want to see if you're hoping for some space weather. All right, so what else do we have here? Do we have any comments? We do not. And I'll briefly show Earth weather. Here is the... Come on, browser. You can respond to my keystrokes. Well, there's our U.S. radar map. And lots of scattered showers all the way from Seattle to Houston. A line there of showers from Seattle to Houston. And some steady rains around the New Mexico-Colorado border, Kansas-Oklahoma border. And the Oklahoma Panhandle is quite sopping. But that's pretty much it. I mean, we are out. So this has been a short stream because basic survival. Anyway, thanks for tuning into the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off. And until next time, may that solar wind be at your back.